I've done a new pattern for Bobtail Skinks. These are native to Australia. The way I've knit them is the body is not stuffed, it's just rolled. And I've put some little wires in this one to see if I could make him stand up better. But it turns out that even the ones with no wires at all stand up on their little legs pretty good. So the wires are completely optional. This one is an albino. And they come in orange. They don't really look like this. This one was an experiment. But I did a few different things. This pattern is the same for the head. Only difference is I used larger needles for this one. So you can change the shape of your bobtail just by changing the needle size. These are knit with a super bulky yarn. This is Hometown USA, which is kind of ironic for an Australian animal. The color is Little Rock Granite that I'm going to do the experiment in. This one really looks like a bobtail. The wild ones look very similar to this color. I don't think this is available in Australia. Look for something super bulky that needs a size 13 needle, and then you can use this pattern. It'll probably come out fine. This project will use half a ball of this yarn, about 50 grams. These are the knitting needles. I also need a crochet hook and a yarn needle for this project. And I follow along with my pattern on my iPad. I have a checklist, so I'll set that up. To make the bobtail, it's a little round tail, I make the first several rows done like I-cord, so that they are joined together underneath, and then it switches to straight back and forth knitting for the rest of the body. Start with a long tail cast on and cast on 4 stitches. Now you're going to slide the work to the other end of the needle and knit it like I-cord. I'll pull the tail up the middle so that it's hidden up inside the lizard's tail. Now knit 4 stitches. And then slide them back to the other end of the needle again. Lift that tail up inside. And now I'm going to do some increases to make the tail wider. So I'll knit 1, and I'm going to make 1 right by lifted increase. I'm going to pick up the stitch below, put it on the needle and knit it, and then knit the 2 in the middle, and then do a make 1 left where I pick up the stitch corresponding to the one I just did on the other side. So do the left side, and on the left increase you knit the back of the stitch so that it comes out facing the right direction, and then knit the last stitch. Now I'm going to repeat that again. I'm going to hold the yarn up inside, slide it to the end, and knit the first stitch. I'm going to make 1 right again. This is actually in that same original stitch again. Knit to the last stitch and do another make 1 left. So now that's 8 stitches on the needle. I'm going to pick that up inside and just knit all 8 of those again. No more increases just yet. Put my yarn to the tail goes in front of the yarn crossing over. And I'm going to do an increase again. Knit 1. Make 1 right, knit 6, what is that, 7, and that was 6, and make 1 left, knit the last one. Alright, now that I have 10 stitches on the needle, instead of doing any more I-cord, I'm going to turn the work and start knitting back and forth. So I'm just going to purl back to the beginning. With this 10 stitches, I'm going to do another increase row, make one right, knit across to the last stitch. So it's going to alternate between increase rows and purling back across for the rest of the tail part of the lizard. This is the last increase row in the tail. This is going from 12 to 14. After this, you do 3 rows just plain back and forth, and that's where you'll attach the back legs later. Then we'll start doing the belly increases. After I got to 14 stitches, I did 3 more rows, a purl row, a knit row, and a purl row. And now I'm going to go up to my 13 needles, and I'm going to increase every single row, even the purl rows. So I'm going to make one right and knit to the last stitch. I'm going to make one left, knit the last stitch. Now I'm going to turn and I'm going to work an increase on the purl side as well. I'm trying to make as much fabric as I can. In this sample, I did only increases on the knit rows, and on the purl rows I just purled back. And that's fine, but the body is a little bit narrow and it's not real thick. So when I did the albino color one, I increased every single row so that the side is much more pronounced change. And that just makes more fabric rolled up inside. So it's a little bit more plump and a little more shape to the sides. It just gets a little wider at the sides. It's not a huge difference, so if you don't want to do the purl row increases, you don't have to, but I like it a little bit squishier. So I'm going to do this one that way. So to do the purl row increase, I wanted to get past the increase I just made. So I did a purl 2 and then make one purl. And since this is all going to be hidden, it just rolls up under the toy. It's not critical how you do this, but I'm gonna lift the bar, the stitch connecting the 2 stitches. I'm gonna put it up on the needle, and I'm going to purl it. And by doing that, it twists so it doesn't make a hole, and it just makes it nice and tight so that it curls up good. So here's my last make one purl. I swear I'm not this clumsy when I'm not trying to do this on top of a board. Alright, so there's the make one purl, and purl the last 2. Turn it and repeat the increase. Knit one there, and then increase. I like the lifted increase for bulky yarn, but any of them will work. After working all the increase rows, start the decrease rows. On the purl side, purl 2 together at the beginning of the row, and then purl all the way across and purl 2 together on the last 2 stitches. Last 2 stitches, purl 2 together. Because I purl combination style, I do my first knit 2 together as a slip slip knit, which means I just knit through the back loop because my stitches are twisted. Then I knit to the end. Now on the last 2 stitches, if I want to do a real knit 2 together, I have to untwist my stitches because they come out ready to knit through the back when I purl. So that's a knit 2 together. Just repeat that every row according to the pattern until it's time to knit the next stitches. On the decrease row going down to 12 stitches, I changed to 11 needles. And now I'm going down to 8 stitches. I'm going to stay on 11 needles. The pattern says to go down to 10s. If you want a small head, use 10s. I'm going to try 11s on this one just to see what it's like. So that's the first 4 stitches. I'm going to knit the next 4 on another needle. Okay, now I have work on 2 needles so that I can join to work in the round. First I'm going to knit 2. I'm going to make 1 right. And I'm going to knit 4. Goes right around the transition between needles. Make 1 left. Knit 2. I'm going to rearrange my stitches a little bit. I'm going to move 2 from each needle to a 3rd needle. So now this is the top of the head, and these 2 needles make up the bottom of the head. I've written out the pattern so that this is still the end of round at the split down the middle. This is needle 1, this is needle 2, and this is needle 3. Now I've given the stitch count for each needle. So now you want to knit 4. I didn't separate out the instructions by needle because you can do the needles however you want. So the instructions go around, so it says knit 4 even though that's on 2 separate needles. Just have to figure it out. Right, so that's a knit 4, make 1 right, knit 2, make 1 left, and knit 4. After that set of instructions, I should have 3 needles on, 3 stitches on needle 1 and 3, and 6 stitches on needle 2. So that's good, I'm in the right configuration. The next step is to knit 5. So that's 3, 4, 5, make 1 right, knit 2, make 1 left, knit 5. That row I should have 3 stitches on needles 1 and 3 and 8 stitches on needle 2. That's good. And the next 2 rows I just knit. This will be the middle of the head. The second knit row I need to rearrange my stitches a little bit. So after I knit the first 3, I knit the next 2 to another needle and then move them over. And I want 4 stitches on the middle needle. So I'll knit those 4. If I had another needle, I'd pick it up, but I don't have one. So I will slip these 2 back and then knit the rest of the round so that now I have 5 stitches on each side and only 4 in the middle. So now I can start doing the decreases that go above the eyes. The first decrease round starts with the knitting 3, and then there's a slip slip knit. Since I'm working in the round, I don't have my stitches twisted from the way I do when I work flat. So I do a slip slip knit the normal way everybody does it. Knit the top stitch and then do a knit 2 together. And then knit 3. Now you should have 4 stitches on all of your needles. I want to do a plain knit round between the increase rounds, and I'm going to rearrange my stitches a little bit to set myself up for the next decrease on the next round. I want 5 stitches on this needle instead of just 4. So I'm going to knit 1 extra one on there, and then knit 2 in the middle. Move this to another needle and knit these 4, so I'll have 5 on the side needles and 2 on the center needle. Here's another decrease round where I'm going to decrease the last 2 stitches on the side needles. So this last 2 on this one, and it's the first 2 on the 3rd needle. So now there's 4, 4, and 2. The next round I really am going to go down a needle size. I'm going to go down to 10s. If I'd started with 10s, I would go down to 8s. And I want to arrange these so I have 5 stitches and 5 stitches on just 2 needles, and I won't have 3 needles anymore. That's not working. I'll knit it onto another one, and I'll move it. Alright, so now I have 5 stitches on 2 number 10 needles. Follow the same pattern again and decrease the last 2 stitches on this needle. So that I'll knit 3, slip slip knit, knit 2 together, that nice and tight, and knit 3. Now the needles are on either side of the head. This is the top of the head. So this next step, I'm going to, I want to decrease these 2 stitches so they come to a point for the tip of the nose. Here's how I do it. I'm going to knit 2 together knit 1. Now I'm going to slip this last stitch and then go to the next needle and knit the first stitch, and then I want to pass the slip stitch over the knit, so I have to go back and get it, or I'll put this stitch on that needle, and then I want to pass this slip stitch over that one, and now I can pull this yarn really tight, and that should tighten up that stitch so there won't be any gap between the needles or anything. And then the last needle will be a knit 1. And a slip slip knit. Split that a little bit. Okay. So you end with 3 stitches and 2 stitches. Now I finish this off by cutting the yarn, threading it on a yarn needle, and now I'm going to thread it through all of the stitches. Just take them off the needles and put them on the yarn needle. Pull the yarn through. Now I'm going to try to make the little nose. I don't want it to look like a kissing fish, so I'm just going to work the yarn and the stitches until I make that sort of nose shaped. Okay, that's acceptably nosy. And I'll just pull the rest of the yarn through to the back so that I can sew this up when I'm done. And now I need to make a way to stuff the head. What I've been doing is take a little scrap of black fleece or whatever color goes with your yarn and sort of line up the nose at the front and then cut out the head shape. And I've cut out a little extra at the back to tuck in. So I cut right around the head shape. Don't need a seam allowance or anything extra because the fleece is stretchy. I've learned that it's a good idea to not stuff anything in the neck or it looks funny. So I'm only going to use the very front of this, but I need the extra just so I can tuck it in and sew it shut. Now I might fold this in half and make sure I've gotten it symmetrical. When I get my nice piece cut out, I just cut myself a piece of black thread. Put it on my sewing needle. Sew this up. I start right at the back of the head, not down in the neck area, but just at, where it's still pretty big. And I just sew around. I don't even try to do a mattress stitch or anything. I just whip it around. When I finish getting that sewed up, I just leave the thread. I'll need it for sewing up the end. I just take the needle away and leave that tail to sew it up when I'm finished. So now I take the little pillow I've made and I'm going to insert it inside the head. Alright, now I need to place the eyes. I want to put them right under this row of stitches where I did the decreases. I'm going to take a knitting needle and jab it in here. Put my finger inside so I can try to find the seam. So I'm going to try to find the seam on the little pillowcase I knit, that I sewed. I'm going to count back 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the tip of the nose and go down to the row below that. And that's where I'm going to put my eye. Stick my knitting needle through that and using my finger work it through the seam of the fleece. And now I'll put the eye in place there. This is a little bit tricky because you have to sort of turn it inside out to get the washer on the back of the safety eye. These aren't very good safety eyes either. These are kind of a aftermarket brand. This one has a 9mm eye, which I like better, but I ran out of those and I couldn't find any more, so I had to use 10mm for the other ones, which is why I made this head bigger. Right, now that the eyes are in place, you can put some stuffing in your little pillowcase. You want to stuff it tight enough so that you can't feel the little washers for the eyes. When the head is all stuffed, nice and wide on top, then find your thread tail and close up the back of your little pillowcase. Just tuck the one side inside of it and the other one down underneath, and then just sew across the back. And you want to make sure that it's way up inside the head and doesn't come out into this knit part any, because you want that knitting to be flexible. Now I've got this yarn tail from the nose left. I'm going to thread that on my needle and sort of just tighten up the connection here at the back. Got a little loosened up from me fiddling with the eyes. So I'll just run it through either side a little bit. Just to kind of tidy that up. Now I will, I'm going to just keep this until I finish working on the legs, and then I'll tighten that up even more. I'm making the legs with a 10 needle because bobtails have very small legs. I'm going to cast on 4 stitches, and I want this tail to hang out the back because I'm going to use it to tie the leg to the body. So I want to knit I-cord style. All 4 stitches. I'm knitting them really tight. Make the legs sort of posable. The tighter knitting is, the more you can shape it. You just knit 2 rows as I-cord. Pull that really tight. Okay, that's 2 knit rows. See, it already looks like a leg. Now I'm going to knit 2 together, still doing it like I-cord. Knit 2 together, and then knit 2 together again. Tight knitting is difficult, but it's only a small little leg. These legs are fiddly, that's why I decided to shoot a video, because I couldn't figure out how to describe how to do this without showing it. Now knit those 2 stitches. Just 1 row of knitting after the knit 2 togethers. That makes the bottom part of the leg. And that's all the knitting. Now I want to cut the tail. And I'm going to pull this tail through the last 2 stitches. I'm going to use a crochet hook to do that. I'm going to put it through the stitch the yarn is coming from first, so it's still like I'm doing I-cord. And I'm not going to pull it all the way through. I'm going to leave a loop, pull it nice and tight. So here's my, here's the last 2 knit stitches with the yarn through them. I'm going to chain 1 stitch. I'm going to pull that first stitch nice and tight. And then I'm going to make 1 more chain stitch. I'm going to pull the yarn all the way through it and pull it tight. See, that's a little toe. Now to do the next toe, I'm going to pull a loop up through this yarn on the side, and I'm just going to hold the yarn behind the little toe I just made, and I'm going to try not to pull it too tight. If I pull it too tight, it's going to bend that toe over. So I want to hold that toe up like that while I make the other loop. So I want to do the same 2 loops on this side. And even though it's very loose, I'm going to tighten that all up. So that's 2 toes, and I'm going to put 1 more in the middle. I'm going to go through this little bumpy out piece of yarn. I'm going to go down through the hole between the toes and pull the yarn up between there. See, I've bent my toe over. I'm going to try to pull it back up. This is a fiddly little business, but it doesn't take that long. Then make that through the loop. I'm going to go ahead and pull it through again. I'm going to use my knitting needle to sort of straighten out the toe, and that will pull that first stitch tighter, I hope. And I'll just tighten up these next 2 stitches. Now I have a nice little leg. Now to deal with this last piece of yarn, actually I didn't even cut my tail long enough. I'm going to run this up through the leg, and I'm going to use the 2 tails to tie it to the body. So I want to thread it through the stitches on the underside of the foot, and again try to be careful not to bend my toes. And because I knit this as I-cord, it's basically a tube, so I can run the yarn all the way up through it, and I want to make it come out at the top on the opposite side from the cast on. This would work better if I hadn't just put on hand lotion. Okay. So now if I pull on this, it's going to try to bend this middle toe up. So when you tie it onto the body, you want to be careful not to pull too tightly on the tail. Okay, so that's the top side of my leg, and it attaches to the bobtail. We'll make this a back leg, so you can see the, if you roll the body out, you can see where there's a sort of even place, and just from the shape, you just want to put the legs right here, and they're very low on the body, so almost down at the almost at the seam of this, you want to put this foot. So just sort of figure out where you want it, and then just thread the yarn through. I can use the crochet hook to get the other one. I just go, I find 2 pieces of the cross yarn in here. So there's 2 stitches. I go 2 stitches and pull the other yarn tail through that hole. So the leg is just attached to the body, and I'll just tie these 2 pieces of yarn together on the inside. I'm going to just do 1 knot for now until I get all the legs on and make sure that they're all even and lined up. And see, because I knit that so tightly, it'll almost stand up on it, on that knit leg. It will once I've sewn it, once I've tied it tightly. After pulling the tails from the knit leg through the body, knot it twice or 3 times if it wants to keep pulling through. You don't want to pull all the way to the toes. But get that secure. When you have both sides tied and they look even, it looks okay. Now I like to tie the sides together. So I cross the tails from the legs on either side across and tie those. Not all the way together, but just so that it pulls the tail in to make the little bobtail kind of accentuate. Forgotten how to tie a knot. Now the legs are all secure, and I'm just going to cut these tails off, and we'll leave them a little long so they don't unravel. And I'm just going to tuck them up into the body. And this tail, the tail for the cast on, I'm going to sort of flip this inside out, and I'm going to split this yarn in two. Pull half of it through a neighboring stitch. And tie that so that it won't come apart. This is machine washable, so I want to make sure all of the yarn tails are secure. Ta-da. Alright, I have one leg to go. Now for the other two legs, I also want to knot those in place, double knots, and then tie the two sides together. Too tight. Oh, that's good. Now I can double knot the other one. Same place. Might just tie all of them together just for good measure. Trim the ends, tuck them in. Right, and there's the bobtail. You can make his legs go back like he's basking. Tuck the bottom back legs under.